Breaking news, LSU star safety out in the first half against Clemson. We'll talk about it right here on Locked On Clemson.
You are Locked On Clemson, your daily podcast on the Clemson Tigers. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
What's up, Tiger fans? Morgan Thomas here, Clemson fan, Clemson grad, host and producer of Locked On Clemson, part-time host and producer over on the flagship station, 105.5 FM The Roar. Thank you so much for making Locked On Clemson your first listen of the day. We're part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. And if you're new to the show, welcome in. Thank you for being a part of the show. My everydayers out there, we're saluting you. Thank you for being a part of the show every single weekday. You know how we do it here on Locked On. Exclusive Clemson content Monday through Friday. And if you haven't yet, hit that like and subscribe button so you can help out the show. As we get into this show, we're getting closer and closer to the start of the college football season for Clemson and LSU. That first game, August 30th, it can't get here soon enough. And there's a lot going on, specifically some rumors about how this all got going. But LSU's star safety transfer guy, Haulcy, the one that everybody's been saying, watch out for because he's a ball hawk. He is now being reported as someone who is going to be suspended for the first half against Clemson. Projected to be one of their starting safeties. I mean, he was really good at every team he's been at. First team all Big 12 with Houston. 5 total interceptions and a lot of pass breakups. I mean, this guy's just all over the field, and where the ball is up in the air, he's typically around there. What we're hearing online right now is that there's no appeal allowed because he got into what you would say is a scuffle towards the end of the game in the bowl game with Houston. Now, originally it was an unsportsmanlike conduct, but then it was also an ejection, and it was an ejection for fighting. And in that case, you would have to sit out your next game, or at least the first half of your next game. And so in that case, it's rolled over, even though he's not with Houston anymore. It's seemingly rolled over to his next team with LSU, and now here in the first game of the season against the Tigers. I thought you would see him alongside maybe Tremarcus Cooley, maybe someone like Jordan Gilbert. LSU, as we've mentioned on many different aspects, is talented up and down. I mean, they're a very deep team. I think one of the better teams in the country this season. They don't have a lot of flaws other than the fact they really haven't played a ton together because they have a lot of transfers. They were the number 1 transfer portal team in the rankings for 2025. So they've brought in a ton of guys and the best from the portal. How good they really can be together is a big question mark for me. Haulcy was one of those big-time transfer portal players that they're bringing in that was proven at multiple stops along the way. So to me, it wasn't really a question of if he's talented or not. It was just, can he fit into what LSU's defense wants to do? Which you kind of lean towards yes. And then, can he work well together with the other players on the field at the same time? And that, to me, would be maybe a possible weakness at the beginning. Now, enter in this news that he may not play the first half of the game. Then you're going to have to maybe throw in a different rotation there. So how will this possibly change what Clemson can do? Well, to me, if he was that significant of a player, and there's still a lot of question marks again, but his history shows that he's a very good player. So if he's not there and the guys that are replacing him can't hold up as well as he can, where do I think Clemson would be able to gain an advantage the most? Well, first is in the first half. It sounds kind of crazy for me to say it so bluntly because it's the obvious answer, but you have to treat, if you're going to attack in the area where he is now void, no longer going to be playing in that part, you have to do it in the first half. You can't wait around because he's going to be back after halftime. So you have to treat the first half with maybe a little bit more sense of urgency to attack that area of the field where you think that might be a weakness because he's not there. Or I was thinking about this earlier today. What if you're not necessarily attacking his position or who's replacing him in that position, but that person who is in his spot is having to maybe shade a little bit more safely from the defensive coordinator perspective. And so it could possibly open up something under the middle, underneath, with Tyler Brown or Antonio Williams. So maybe your original mindset was to go to Tristan Smith or Bryant Westco to the outside, or maybe Adam Randall. Now maybe you start more heavily with your slot receivers and see if those underneath players can get something open because their deep secondaries are backed up a little bit more. I don't know. To me, it's significant because AJ Haulcy is a great player. He's been a great player at every team he's been on. I want to see a matchup where the best go up against the best. So I don't necessarily like these last minute shakeups like this. It is kind of weird to me that you would get this far into the season or to the start of the season, 2 days to go, and now all of a sudden they figured it out. Is the NCAA really that dumb, that ignorant of what happened last season and what their players are, where they are, and what the rules are? I mean, if the rumors are from the opposing side that Clemson figured this out and sent it into the NCAA, or maybe one of Clemson's reporters did this, and I'm telling you, it wasn't me. I promise you, it wasn't me. I don't care that much. I like I said, I'd rather have 100% versus 100% going at it. That's my mindset. But rules are rules, and Clemson has been hurt by this in the past, where you have to sit out the next game, and that next game is more important game than the one that you got ejected from. So it's frustrating for sure. But the backups for LSU are more than capable. I mean, you've got Cooley and Gilbert. We talked about them. Those guys may have been the starters anyways, and Haulcy might have been a backup. Then you got Toviano's a 5-star guy, and Deshaun Spears, other guys that maybe don't have as many snaps, but still talented. There's no way around it. You're not getting out of talent when it comes to LSU. They have it up and down, all 3 phases and all 3 levels of depth as well. So if there's one guy down, I do believe, it is next man up mentality for LSU. And it could be just a minor issue, but it also could be something to pounce on. It could be something to kind of try to test early. And if there's nothing open up because he's not out there, then maybe it's not that significant of a change. Patience may be the key for LSU, because if I'm LSU and that he was on my team, I would want to manage the first half a little bit differently until he got back out there, and then maybe I could turn and be a little bit more aggressive. So there is a little bit of an impact and some vulnerability, in my opinion, in the underneath that could open up from this. Maybe you can let me know I'm crazy. Maybe I'm reading too much into it, but to me, I would look at the slot wide receivers first and go from there. And again, as I said, LSU extremely deep. They're going to have other players stepping up, and Clemson's just got to do what they need to do to find those little areas that they can exploit. Maybe this is one of those areas for sure, because as I mentioned earlier on this week, I really, truly believe that the spread is correct, that this is a field goal game. This is less than a touchdown game. This is going to be one where there's going to be a huge battle between 2 teams, and it could come down to just one simple mistake. Another question I have is, can Clemson's front 4 get pressure without blitzing? We'll talk about it right here on Locked on Clemson. Hey, Locked on Clemson fans, quick question for you. Are you still paying full price for gas. Stop leaving money behind. Get real cash back every time you fill up with the free Upside app. Just download the app from the App Store or Google Play, and you'll start earning cash at the pump today. Use my limited time promo code FOOTBALL, and you'll get an extra 25 cents per gallon on your first fill up. Think about that. You're already buying the gas. This just puts money back in your pocket. Some folks are making up to $300 a year just from driving like they normally would. I'll admit, I was skeptical at first, but this is the real deal. You can earn actual cash, and when you're ready, you can cash out straight into your bank account, PayPal, or even an Amazon gift card. No catches, no fine print nonsense, just savings. Download the free Upside app now use promo code FOOTBALL to grab your 25% per gallon bonus. That's promo code FOOTBALL. Don't miss it. Offers vary by user and location. Visit upside.com for terms and conditions. This episode is also brought to you by Supply House. When the opening whistle blows on a new repair, get your crew moving forward with Supply House. Order today and see parts to your doorstep tomorrow. Over 280,000 plumbing, HVAC, and electrical items from the most trusted brands in the business. Their real-time inventory and honest lead times keep you from punting projects, while their industry-leading customer service always has your blind side covered. Now, I've had friends that have needed parts for jobs, and Supply House has come through with next day delivery that saved their timelines. What really impressed me was their way to have a part finder tool and 3D schematics cutting down the guesswork for my friends. I'm talking hours saved on their installs and usually no back and forth. Add in their Trademaster perks like priority shipping and support that actually picks up the phone. Well, hey, that's a winning play for anyone who values their time and their reliability on the job. Join free today, Trademaster program today, and score serious perks like priority shipping, lower prices, and a dedicated support line. Visit supplyhouse.com to sign up for free and use promo code SHCollege5 for 5% off your first order. That's supplyhouse.com. Real people, real service. With Tom Allen now calling the plays, you got to be very confident if you're Clemson that they will improve from last year. Clemson's defense still has to answer two key questions for us going into this season. And these are things that they couldn't do last season, whether we like to admit it or not. Can the front four, in front four meaning Will Help, DeMonte Capehart, Peter Woods, and TJ Parker, can those front four guys pressure LSU's offense and their quarterback in Garrett Nussmeier without blitzing at all? I'm a little skeptical by that. I don't know if they'll be able to do it. But the problem therein lies if you bring in extra men to pressure the quarterback, which is a key point in this game. If you have to use more than four, then guess what? You're losing more coverage behind the line of scrimmage in the backfield. So I'm telling you right now, you cannot let these speedsters run all over you, and you cannot have to send so many guys just to get even a little bit of pressure, because it's going to open up the field behind the defense, is what I meant to say earlier, behind the defense, and it's going to allow Garrett Nussmeier to just destroy you. You know, you're going to maybe not eat up with the explosive deep plays, but they're going to dink and dunk you forever, and they're going to do the fast slants, and these guys are going to be hard to catch up with. They're going to be hard to tackle. So I do worry about that. Another big thing that I worry about is, can Clemson's defense actually stop the run? You know, we talked about Tom Allen and the addition of Will Helt and Jeremiah Alexander and Tom Allen improving this defense and Ben Boulware improving the defense. But at the end of the day, what happens if they come out again and they can't stop the run? You know, how frustrating is that going to be from a Clemson fan base standpoint? I know I'm going to be irate if you have more of the same lack of stopping the run. If there's no answer, if Clemson can't get to the quarterback without sending additional men, leaving themselves vulnerable in coverage. If Clemson can't stop the run, then this is going to be a long Saturday. And that are things that worry me. Can Clemson succeed with just 4? They have a same challenge that anybody has. The better teams in the country that are on defense, the better teams that can stop the run can do that. Tom Allen arrives from Penn State where he needs to show and prove that he can carry on the success of coaching defense. We believe he can. Can he do it here at Clemson in the very first week where the pressure is on? It's a high stakes game with an SEC and an ACC powerhouse teams going at it. The offensive line for the SEC and for LSU is one where there's a lot of question marks on the other side. You can't allow that group that hasn't played together, that has a lot of question marks, that has talent but not a lot of experience. You can't allow them to just easily handle 4 guys, no problem. Clemson has talent on their defensive line. They're eat up with talent. Peter Woods, TJ Parker, DeMonte Capehart, they're going to the NFL. Will Help eventually going to the NFL. They're talented. They're battle tested themselves. So now this is their contract year to show what they can do, to get that penetration and to attack an LSU offensive line that may possibly be the only weakness, and a little one at that. LSU's offensive line no longer has Will Campbell, no longer has Emory Jones Jr. The projected started 5 is different from last season, and they're not as used to each other as Clemson's front line of the defense. It really is going to come down to a trench battle. And I really believe you're going to figure this out early, because if Caden Durham can chew up yards and bust big plays, that's when I'm like, man, this is going to be a long night. It's not going to be fun if Clemson can't stop the run against an LSU running group that is extremely talented. It's also going to be a huge risk-reward factor if Clemson has to commit more guys to blitz just to get pressure, any sort of pressure. It's going to expose the secondary, and LSU should be able to exploit it. They have the wide receivers to do so. They have the tight end to do so. And it could make for a long night for Clemson. So a lot of this game relies on their ability to get to the backfield. But, I've been mentioning that the past couple of weeks, get that pressure on the quarterback. But as we get closer, the more I think it needs to be with as little amount of people as possible. The best case scenario is that they only need 4 to get that pressure. That would make it a long night for LSU. But if you need more than that, if you need 5, if you need even 6, that's when I think the script is flipped, and then Garrett Nussmeier and those speedy wide receivers will be able to eat you alive. We know last year's problem still is a big question mark. 160 yards per game on the ground, one of the worst showings from Clemson's defense in almost 10 years. How quickly can Tom Allen turn that around? You relatively have a lot of the same guys, but they seem to be more healthy now. But LSU has the threat of that rushing attack in Caden Durham, Caleb Jackson, and Harlem Berry, who I've been warning you about. Their speedster guy that can really shut you up quickly in that run game. So I believe the big question for me is, how much has Tom Allen really improved this defense? And if he has, we will find out very early on. It won't be a whole game for you to have to still be questioning it. After the game, you won't still be questioning it. After this game, really at halftime, you'll be feeling it. I believe that. We'll know really quickly by how easily LSU can run the ball against Clemson if they've been able to fix that. And we'll know really early how many people Tom Allen has to send to even get to Garrett Nussmeier. And if it's the opposite way that I said, then I am definitely worried about what Clemson can do, because those are the huge keys to this game. And if they can't do those things, then it's going to be a long night. So that's key for me going into this game. We know that they need to get the pressure. We know that this is going to be a big atmosphere. And hopefully the Clemson faithful can help out. You know, they've got 82,000 fans that are going to be there screaming their lungs out. And that has been able to help the defense disrupt the offense. And so with everything combined, that's why I still lean towards, yes, it can happen. And it leans on the side of Clemson. If they were playing in LSU this year, you wouldn't have that element. And so that would be a huge concern. All right, we talked about the defense. I have another big question for you about that. And it goes with that 457 yards a game. And we'll talk about it in segment 3 right here on Locked On Clemson. College football is back, and I couldn't be more excited. The tailgates, the rivalries, the energy in the stands, there is nothing like college football. But let's be real. Actually getting tickets can feel a little bit more of a battle than the game itself. Endless queues, hidden fees, prices jumping everywhere, especially at checkout. That's why I recommend Game Time, the app that gives you the advantage and it gives it back to the fans. It's the easiest way to score last-minute tickets at the best prices with no surprise fees. What you see is what you pay. And I have used Game Time many, many times, not just for Clemson and not just for football, but for baseball, the Atlanta Braves, and even basketball. You can go into Game Time and get great seats for great prices. And they even have zone deals where you get to pick a section and they give you the best seats available. You can save big without having to do the doom scroll. It's easy, fast, and less stressful than any other app I've used for this. So take the guesswork out of buying college football tickets with Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONCollege for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, that's promo code LOCKEDONCollege, LOCKEDONCOLLEGE for $20 off. Swipe, tap, ticket, go. Download Game Time today. Hey, before we get into the next segment, I wanted to tell you, you're missing out if you're not already part of the Locked On Clemson Insider Program. We've been having some incredible conversations lately over text message. Fans are texting me directly, sharing with me their takes. We're going back and forth with our questions on the team and the game plan. Plus, you get access to me throughout the season. We'll do mailbag episodes with your questions and have insider discussions all season long. There's even a 14-day free trial, so there's no excuse for you to sit on the outside. The link is in this description on this video and podcast. Do not miss it. Clemson gave up 457 yards per game against ranked teams last season. 457. LSU can hit 457. They did that last year plenty of times. On average, they were like 430. If they score 30 points and drop 430 yards on Clemson, how will Clemson be able to keep up? You know, we talked about it today on the radio about what would be a score that you would not want to see your opponent get to because you didn't believe your team could handle that. And to be honest with you, there's a concern from the Clemson sideline, at least from the fan base, that they can't hang with LSU if they're at the 400 to 450 yards per game. If they continue to do what they did last season, which is allow that many yards and 30 or more points per game against the ranked teams, then LSU will be able to just run all over them. And I tend to agree with that. My prediction for the game was 24-21 to Clemson. So if you picked Clemson to cover the spread, they will not be able to. I think it's one of those things where Vegas is right. You're going to have your team win because they're at a home environment. I lean on the home team early season game, but I do believe that LSU would win plus the 4.5 that it is at right now. If you go with the spread straight up, I think Clemson wins, but it is a close game for me. And for it to be a close game, neither team really is going to get to 30 points. But if one team gets to 30 points, I do worry about if Clemson can handle that. If Clemson allows that from their defense, can their offense respond? We know that they have these guys that are talented and successful, and they did really well as their freshman year. We're anticipating they're going to grow and evolve again and continue to develop and get even better. But one thing that LSU does have is an extremely solid SEC quarterback that is not just an SEC quarterback by name. He's a guy who was a 4,000-yard passer last season and also a Heisman hopeful and a future first-round draft pick. We know that they have mismatches that have already shown that they can exploit things, like Berrien Brown, the speedster wide receiver that destroyed, really tore up Clemson when he was with Kentucky in multiple different ways. They didn't win the game, but it wasn't necessarily his responsibility to win the game. He did everything he could do. He's on this team. Chris Hilton Jr., we talked about him being the deep ball threat, and Trey'Dez Green, talked about him being the red zone threat. And we mentioned it this week about Bauer Sharp being that possible possession tight end. They have plenty of weapons to go after you. And I didn't even mention that Aaron and Nick Anderson, not brothers, and Xavier Thomas. So we know that LSU has a lot of mismatches and difficult coverage wide receivers that are out there. If that kind of group with that kind of quarterback can score 30 or more points, I don't really know if Clemson walks away with a win. That would be something that concerns me in that case. My biggest question is, has Cade Klubnik and this offense continued to progress under Garrett Riley to the point where they can hang with anybody? You remember when Clemson was a national championship team, you really didn't care how much anybody else could score because you felt like you could outscore anybody, and it really was true up until LSU 2019. And then you really couldn't at that point. But when Clemson was their best, they were outscoring or hanging with anybody. We haven't really seen that as often, as we used to when Clemson was a national championship contender. Can they get back to that? I thought about that today, and with the discussion about can there be a specific score limit that's insurmountable. And I don't know if that's necessarily the case. I do feel like if you get into the mid-30s, then I don't know if Clemson has proven trustworthy enough to hang with that. But I will say that, Cade Klubnik has to take that next step. If he doesn't, and this team doesn't, then I'm questioning Garrett Riley at that point. I'm questioning his ability. We're starting to see a lot of cracks with Lincoln Riley. The more we get sample sizes from him, the more we feel like he hasn't been able to continue the success. Same thing with Garrett Riley. The more we get a little bit of sample sizes here and there, the more we think, we may think, hey, well, these most difficult games, Clemson has not been able to win those. So that's still a big question mark for me. I'm not saying they can't. I'm just saying I'm curious to see the development that's been made from this offseason going into 2025 against a huge test that is LSU. Can they put up 400 yards? I think they have the talent to do so, but they've got to go out there and do it. Can they hang with a team that can score 30 or more? I think they have the talent to do so, but Cade Klubnik and that staff and that group of men out there have to go do it. It could be an area where I'm anticipating a slugfest. I'm anticipating under 25 points for both teams. So that's my true opinion. But what I'm giving you a what if scenario. What if there's a couple of those explosives where Chris Hilton Jr. gets open for 40, 50 yards, where there's some sort of miscommunication, where's that one mistake that I mentioned to you about? Can Klubnik rebound, handle that pressure, handle that concern, and go out and match that? Can Cade Klubnik win a 35-31 instead of a 24-21? Is it more likely that Clemson can win 35-31 or 24-21? I tend to lean towards 24-21 than 35-31. if that makes sense to you. So Clemson needs to prove that they can be a high-scoring team that can, hang with a shootout if it gets into that scenario. I would rather them grind it out because I think with everything the way it is setting up, I'd rather it be a grinder game, that Clemson comes out with a narrow victory and both teams are top teams in the country. If it's a shootout, then I'm going to be really curious to see how well Clemson can hang. And if Clemson can hang, then I'm going back to hey, these are just two powerful offenses and two of the top teams in the country. And I still go back to the very end of, no matter who wins or loses this game, it doesn't take away from my true feeling that they're both extremely talented and should be able to rebound and have a great season overall. So yeah, has Clemson fixed it? This Saturday, we're definitely going to figure that out for sure. It's another big moment in Locked On. College football fans, Locked On and Fire TV are presenting College Football Kickoff, your ultimate college football weekly preview. Drake Toll of Locked On Big 12 leads the conversation alongside two-time AP Coach of the Year Gary Patterson, former college star Jesse Holley, and Locked On's local experts. A college football preview only Locked On can do. Catch College Football Kickoff every Thursday throughout the season, only on Fire TV. And to my everydayers out there, thank you so much for hanging with me here to the very end of the show. And as always, Tiger fans, we'll see you Saturday, and we'll see you at the top of the hill.